From the time you were young, you were likely taught to explain yourself. Every decision, every feeling, every boundary had to come with a reason. You were conditioned to believe that your worth was tied to how well you could defend your choices. That saying no required a backstory, and choosing yourself needed approval from someone else. But what if that was never true? What if the most powerful thing you could do was simply act in alignment with who you are, without seeking permission, validation, or applause? What if you didn't need to package your truth in a way that made others comfortable? This series is about reclaiming that power. It's about shedding the weight of over-explaining. It's about understanding that your decisions, your values, your boundaries, your lifestyle, they are yours. Not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. You weren't made to be understood by everyone. You were made to live honestly, to honor your path, and to move with clarity and confidence, even when that means being misunderstood. We live in a world obsessed with commentary. Everyone has something to say, an opinion to share, a judgment to pass. But that doesn't mean you have to answer to it. You don't have to explain why you left the relationship, why you didn't take that job, why you cut off contact, why you changed, why you slowed down, why you started over. Sometimes, because it felt right for me is more than enough. And even that, you don't owe. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about knowing who deserves access to your energy and who doesn't. It's about building your life on your terms, without constantly needing to prove you've made the right choice. The truth is, people will project their own fears and expectations onto you. They'll challenge your boundaries, question your growth, and expect you to justify anything they don't agree with. But here's the shift. You no longer engage in that performance. You no longer hand out explanations like apologies. You choose peace over performance and alignment over approval. Each part of this series will walk you through a different layer of this transformation. From unlearning people-pleasing to honoring your intuition, from setting boundaries without guilt to letting go of the need to be liked. This is your reminder that you're allowed to evolve without a panel of approval. You don't need to be loud about your choices, you just need to be rooted in them. You don't need to be understood to be valid, you just need to be true. And you don't need to explain yourself to feel empowered. You just need to trust yourself. So take a breath. This isn't about becoming arrogant. It's about becoming sovereign. Let's begin. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You spent years trying to be understood. You explained your every decision. You softened your tone. You reworded your boundaries so they'd sound more acceptable. You told your story with disclaimers and smiled when you didn't feel like smiling. You did all of this just to be liked, just to be approved, just to avoid being called difficult, dramatic, or too much. But no matter how many times you explained yourself, someone still misunderstood you, someone still judged you, someone still didn't get it. And finally, you asked yourself, why am I exhausting myself trying to convince people who are committed to not understanding me? That was the turning point. You're starting to accept that you weren't born to be universally understood. You were born to live your truth, even if that truth makes other people uncomfortable. You're not here to constantly explain why you feel what you feel, why you choose what you choose, or why your journey looks different. You're here to grow, evolve, and stand in your power. Not everyone will see you clearly. That doesn't make your path wrong. It doesn't mean you owe them an explanation. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any justification. Sometimes walking away without a word is more powerful than defending your peace. And sometimes your growth will offend the people who benefited from your self-doubt. But that's not your burden anymore. You've stopped holding meetings in your mind where you rehearse the perfect response. You've stopped writing essays in your head to justify why your boundaries are valid. You no longer feel the need to be the nice girl who keeps everyone comfortable at her own expense. You've realized that understanding doesn't always equal connection. Some people will never understand your decisions because they're not meant to walk your path, and that's okay. The ones who are meant to stay in your life won't need constant explanations to respect your journey. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not distant, you're discerning. You're not selfish, you're self-aware. You're learning that your peace is more important than other people's approval, and that lesson is setting you free. Because when you stop needing everyone to understand you, you begin to understand yourself. You no longer wait for people to get it. You get it, you feel it, you trust it, and that's enough. You're not here to fit in. You're here to align. You're not here to be explained. You're here to be lived. That shift, that clarity, that quiet confidence, it's not rudeness, it's evolution. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for it. Your boundaries are not up for debate. There was a time when you hesitated to draw the line, when you said yes even when your soul screamed no, when you tolerated what made you uncomfortable just to avoid conflict. And when you did speak up, you felt the need to explain it all, over and over, until the other person finally understood. But now, you've stopped doing that. You've come to understand something powerful. Your boundaries don't require permission. They don't need to be explained in perfect language. They don't need to be approved by the other person. They don't need to be softened to be respected. Your boundaries are not up for debate. You no longer apologize for protecting your energy. You don't justify saying no. You don't turn your decisions into open discussions just to avoid being labeled difficult. You've learned that people who truly care about you will accept your limits, even when they don't fully understand them. And the ones who push back? That tells you everything you need to know. You've stopped over-explaining your need for space, your limits with communication, your shift in priorities. You've learned that people-pleasing is a self-abandonment habit, and you're not abandoning yourself anymore. You now say things like, "I'm not available. I don't have the capacity for that. That doesn't feel right for me." And you say them without a long follow-up. Because you finally understand. Your comfort is not less important than someone else's expectations. You're not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your truth. You're responsible for honoring what's right for you. This change didn't come from bitterness. It came from healing, from understanding your worth, from realizing that your body knows when something is off. And you have every right to respond to that feeling without offering a full emotional report. You have stopped fearing being seen as too much for having standards. You've stopped feeling guilty for walking away when something drains your peace. And you've stopped allowing guilt to keep you in spaces where your soul doesn't feel safe. Now your boundaries are calm, not angry, firm, not forceful, quiet, not defensive. And they are unshakable. You no longer over-explain your way into being heard. You simply speak once. And you let the boundary do its job. That's not being cold, that's being clear. You're not rude, you're real. And that version of you, the one who protects her energy without guilt, she's no longer waiting for permission. She simply chooses herself. That too is a sign. You're rising, you're reclaiming, you're becoming. You're allowed to change without explaining why. Growth isn't linear. One day you're sure of what you want and the next you feel something pulling you in a different direction. That's not weakness, that's expansion. Yet for most of your life, you felt the pressure to stay the same just so you didn't confuse or disappoint others. But here's what you've realized. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to pivot, to evolve, to outgrow what once felt right. And you don't have to write a detailed explanation every time you do. You're no longer forcing yourself to stay in roles that no longer fit just because you once said yes. You're no longer keeping friendships alive out of guilt. You're no longer pursuing dreams that belong to your past just to prove you're consistent. Consistency isn't about staying the same. It's about staying true. And staying true sometimes means walking away from what no longer resonates. You're done apologizing for evolving, for wanting more, for needing less, for becoming softer or louder or bolder or quieter, whatever the new version of you demands. You've stopped giving others the script of your transformation, hoping they'll understand your next move. Some will cheer for you, some will question you, some will fall away completely. Let them. Your journey doesn't need a panel of judges, it doesn't need a presentation, it doesn't need validation. You've learned that it's okay to change your mind, it's okay to rewrite your story mid-chapter, it's okay to no longer be the person others remember, because you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. That kind of shift is internal, and trying to explain it to people who are comfortable with your past self will only weigh you down. You don't owe anyone a reason for growing, you don't owe a speech when you decide to heal, you don't owe an essay when you choose to rest. You're no longer asking, will they understand? You're asking, does this honor me? And if the answer is yes, that's enough. You're not unstable. You're awakening. You're not flaky. You're finding alignment. You're not confused. You're courageous. You've stopped watering the old version of you just to keep others comfortable. And that freedom, it doesn't require an explanation. Not everyone deserves access to you. You used to believe that being a good person meant being endlessly available. You returned every call, replied to every message, said yes out of guilt. You let people dump their emotions on you without considering the weight you were carrying yourself. You thought it was kindness, but you've learned something crucial. Access to you is a privilege, not a right. You've stopped explaining why you don't answer every text immediately, why you've gone silent in certain circles, why you no longer have the energy for one-sided relationships. It's not personal, it's intentional. You've realized that emotional availability isn't infinite. You only have so much energy to give, and now you give it consciously. You've stopped overextending just to be seen as supportive. You've stopped burning yourself out for people who wouldn't do the same for you. And you've stopped offering pieces of your soul to those who can't hold them with care. Some people feel entitled to your time. They expect access, explanations, responses, updates, but you've learned to say nothing, to take space, to choose stillness over performance, to protect your peace even when it's misunderstood. You don't need to explain why you're unavailable. You don't need to justify your distance. You don't need to make excuses for choosing solitude over noise. You're not distant. You're discerning. You're not rude. You're rooted. You're not disappearing. You're preserving. The truth is, not everyone deserves the full version of you. Not everyone has earned the right to your energy, your vulnerability, your presence. And that's not arrogance, that's self-respect. You're learning to give from overflow, not emptiness. You're protecting the version of you that once tried to pour from a dry cup, and you're no longer explaining why that cup is now sacred. Some people will know, ties the change. They'll say you've become cold, unavailable, different, and they'll be right. Because this new version of you values boundaries over burnout, depth over obligation, truth over performative connection. You're not withholding, you're choosing, you're not vanishing, you're evolving. And the most beautiful part, you don't need to explain it. You've earned the right to be intentional. You've earned the right to go quiet. You've earned the right to protect your space without defending it. Because not everyone is meant to walk with you through every season. And you finally understand that your peace matters more than their opinion. There was a time when you measured your choices through the lens of others. You wondered what they'd think before making a decision. You filtered your words, softened your truths, and dimmed your light. All so no one would feel uncomfortable in your presence. You wore masks just to be accepted. But now, you've tasted peace, and you're not willing to trade it for approval. You've stopped explaining why you didn't attend the event, why you're no longer part of that friend group, why your weekends are quieter. You've stopped offering explanations for your silence, your slow replies, your distance. Because your peace is not up for negotiation. You've realized that protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's necessary. You don't need to say yes just to appear kind. You don't need to show up everywhere just to be seen. You don't need to defend your absence from spaces that no longer nourish you. Some people will misunderstand your silence. Others will label it as arrogance or detachment. But you've learned to live with that discomfort, because it doesn't compare to the chaos that once consumed you when you lived for everyone else. You're no longer reacting to every opinion. You're not adjusting your choices to fit into someone's idea of what's right. You're not seeking external validation for internal decisions. You know what feels right for you. You know what brings you peace. And that clarity is your compass now. You've created space to breathe, to heal, to reflect. You don't owe anyone a spreadsheet of how you spend your time. You don't need to prove that your quiet life is still a meaningful one. Your peace is sacred. Your stillness is sacred. Your solitude is sacred. You've stopped explaining your joy to people who live in drama. You've stopped justifying your soft life to those addicted to chaos. You've stopped tearing relationships that deplete you, because peace isn't just a feeling, it's a boundary. And once you felt it, you'll do whatever it takes to protect it. No apologies, no explanations, just truth. You've stopped apologizing for who you are. There's something powerful about finally standing in your own skin, unedited, unfiltered, and unapologetic. You've spent years shrinking to fit rooms that weren't built for your full self. You softened your voice, toned down your passions, and edited your personality just to be more likable. But the truth is, you were never too much. You were just in the wrong places. Now, you've stopped saying sorry for being who you are. You no longer apologize for being emotional, passionate, introverted, bold, ambitious, soft, direct, or any other part of your natural wiring. You don't explain why you need alone time. You don't justify your strong opinions. You don't tone down your dreams for people who think small. You've stopped feeling guilty for choosing what lights you up. You no longer dim your shine just so others can feel comfortable in their shadows. You're not being extra, you're being authentic. And authenticity doesn't come with disclaimers. You used to preface your opinions with, "I might be wrong," but you used to second-guess your excitement, afraid of being called dramatic. You used to smile when you wanted to speak up and stay quiet when you wanted to scream. Not anymore. Now you say what you mean. You wear what you love. You show up as you are, without over-explaining, without rehearsing, without apologizing for your presence. Because you've realized that the right people don't need a watered-down version of you. They don't need you to explain your soul. They simply honor it. You've stopped apologizing for your truth, your pace, your boundaries, your voice. This is who you are. And you no longer ask for permission to exist. That kind of self-acceptance, it's fierce, it's radical, and it's healing. Because for the first time, you're not trying to win anyone over. You're not seeking permission. You're not apologizing for simply being yourself. You're not perfect, but you're powerful. And that's more than enough. You no longer need to be understood to feel valid. For so long your peace hinged on being understood. You thought if they just saw things your way, if they heard your heart, knew your intentions, grasped your reasons, then maybe, just maybe, you'd finally feel at ease. So you explained, again and again, you rephrased, you softened, you begged for clarity to land. But now, you've let go of that exhausting cycle. You've realized that some people will misunderstand you no matter how many words you offer. Some don't want understanding, they want control. And explaining yourself to those people is like pouring water into a cracked glass. No matter how much you give, it never holds. You've stopped needing validation through comprehension. Your truth no longer depends on being echoed back to you. You've made peace with being misread, because your value doesn't diminish in their confusion. You don't owe clarity to those who listen just to judge. You don't owe backstory to the ones who interrupt your healing with gossip. You don't owe your journey to anyone who hasn't walked beside you in the dark. Now you walk with quiet confidence. You say less and mean more. You speak only when your voice adds value, not to defend your choices. You hold space for your truth even when no one claps for it. You've made peace with people thinking what they want, because you know who you are, and that knowing is enough. Not everyone needs to understand your growth. Not everyone needs to agree with your path. And not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. This freedom didn't come easy. It came with tears, frustration, and 1,000 moments of why don't they get it? But slowly, you realize that being misunderstood is a small price to pay for being free. Now, you protect your energy. You no longer burn out trying to light the way for those unwilling to see. You've outgrown the need to be decoded. You're no longer the narrator in everyone's story. You've stepped back into your own. And from here, life feels lighter, because you finally know you were never meant to be explained. You were meant to be lived. You trust yourself enough to walk away without explaining. There's a moment in every powerful woman's journey when she realizes she doesn't need anyone's permission to walk away. Not from chaos, not from disrespect, not from anything that drains her spirit. And when that moment arrives, she walks. Not with noise, not with drama, but with clarity. You've reached that point. You've stopped explaining why you left the relationship, why you ended the friendship, why you declined the opportunity, quit the job, or moved cities. You no longer need to prove your pain or justify your joy, because you trust yourself now. You trust your gut when something feels off. You trust your heart when it whispers, this isn't it. You trust your own sense of enough. And when something crosses the line, you don't wait for the world to understand. You leave. You don't create exit speeches. You don't craft perfect closure. You don't write long paragraphs to make them feel okay with your boundary, because you've learned that people who respect you won't need a monologue, and those who demand one often never truly listened. This is freedom, not just the ability to walk away, but the strength to do so without seeking applause or sympathy. You no longer seek to be the bigger person if it means abandoning yourself. You no longer stay just to be liked. You no longer pretend things are fine just to keep the peace. You walk away when you need to, quietly, decisively, lovingly. Sometimes you grieve, yes, but you don't second guess, because you know your soul's peace is a higher priority than anyone's comfort with your decision. And every time you honor your instincts, you strengthen them. Every time you choose your sanity over obligation, your self-respect grows louder. Every time you walk without explaining, you remind yourself, you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are how. To be true to yourself. This isn't cold, it's not unkind, it's powerful, it's sacred, it's self-respect in motion. You've outgrown the need to stay and explain. Now you walk when your heart says walk. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. You've come a long way, not just in what you've done, but in what you've stopped doing. You've stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. You've stopped trying to win over people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You've stopped feeling guilty for making choices that protect your peace. Most importantly, you've stopped explaining yourself. And in doing so, you've started respecting yourself. The woman you're becoming doesn't seek validation from every direction. She no longer overshares her plans to be taken seriously. She no longer lets guilt drive her decisions. She moves from alignment, and when people ask for reasons, justifications, or access to parts of her that are sacred, she doesn't flinch. She smiles. She walks away. She stays grounded. You've learned that clarity is enough. If it's clear to you, that's all that matters. And now your boundaries are quieter, but firmer. Your decisions are bolder, but simpler. Your circle is smaller, but healthier. The less you explain, the more you protect your energy. And the more you protect your energy, the more you expand into the woman you were always meant to be. Some people will still misunderstand you. Some will label you cold, distant, or difficult. Let them. You are no longer in the business of constantly managing other people's perceptions. That's not your job. Your job is to honor your truth. Your job is to choose your well-being. Your job is to stay rooted in who you are, with or without applause. This isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming free. Because real peace isn't found in being understood by everyone. It's found in being at peace with yourself. And now that you've stopped explaining yourself, you've created room for something deeper, authenticity. You no longer perform, you simply live. And the people who resonate with your truth will meet you there. The ones who don't, you release them with grace. You've stepped into your power quietly. You've walked away from noise, from chaos, from expectations. And in that silence, you found yourself. You found your voice, not the one that needs to be heard, but the one that needs to be honored. You no longer defend your healing. You no longer excuse your growth. You no longer water down your truth. You don't explain yourself anymore. Because now, you don't owe anyone an answer. And that is freedom.